Welcome to the NT podcast.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Can you introduce yourself quickly to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So I have actually been working in technology for about 20 years. I have a background from consulting. I was a technology architect, technology strategy, and now I'm actually working in developer evangelism for Viv Labs, which is a conversational AI platform and really empowers Bixby 2.0 from Samsung.
Developer evangelist. So your main work is like helping developers adopting the solution.
Yeah, it is. So it's really much going out, talking to developers, explaining our platform to them and getting them building, amazing and innovative things on our platform. So I always say it's kind of half of a technology job and half of a marketing job.
Nice. And how would you describe, I'm not sure even that's a fair comparison, but how would you describe the difference between Bixby, right? I think it's your AI versus maybe a Siri or a Alexa.
Yeah, so great question. So let me compare it to, Siri does not allow really you to develop your own voice applications, but certainly Alexa and Google Assistant do. So we definitely compete with Alexa and Google Assistant.
Yeah.
And in some ways are really similar and very different. And I'll focus on what the differences are.
Right.
So I think from a device perspective, that's where it's really different. So Samsung is not only the world's biggest smartphone manufacturer, we're the world's biggest TV manufacturer. We're the second world's biggest smartphone manufacturer. We have smart appliances. And so what we're doing is embedding Bixby in not only the phone, but in the TV, in the watch, and the smart appliance.
Oh, okay.
So really you start thinking about voice being kind of ubiquitous and around you and just walking in your house and talking. And maybe your TV is listening, or maybe your smart appliance is listening, or maybe it's your smartphone. So this kind of ambient computing idea, and I call it kind of beyond the smart speaker thinking there. Okay. So that's really the biggest difference. There's a few technology differences around how we do things. It's more model driven than code driven, but that's a long conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, maybe we should have a specific episode just talking about that, right?
I think one of the things, and if you look at voice, it's kind of the newest way of interacting with technology, and yet the oldest way for humans to interact. And so that's one of the things that gets me excited about it, is such the opportunity of being able to just naturally ask your tech what to do instead of having to learn. If I swipe or type, I had to learn to type. I had to learn to swipe. I certainly learned to talk, but I was talking to my parents when I was a little baby. So one of the unlocks I really look at with voice is, hey, if I could just talk to my technology and ask it to do something, it could be far more efficient in many cases, not in all, than going over to a keyboard or even swiping on the screen.
Yeah, I see. Well, funny story here, because like yesterday I was talking to another conversational designer who was kind of touching the same concept here. And he was referring to the concept of a skillmorphism, where I think a lot of visual interfaces, they have this type of association with real-time, real objects, whereas in the voice interfaces, although we are simulating the conversation, but it lacks this type of real association. So it makes it at the same time more challenging to interact with people. So what's your thought on these type of things?
I think that's true. I think one of the things that people are new to voice look at and are like, oh, it looks easy. And I'd argue it's actually really hard. And actually really skilled voice design is super challenging. I can say something to you in 10 different ways and you as a human will understand it, right, as the same thing. That's really hard for an AI or an NLU engine to understand. And so really you have to design some flexibility into your model. And then one of the other big differences is if I'm drawing a UI or creating a UI, I want absolute consistency, right? The UI looks the same every single time. You know what? If you asked me the same question twice, I would answer it differently. That's the human way of doing it. So as a voice assistant, when you think about designing, you really need to think about, hey, variation, saying things a little bit differently,
okay.
even adding some slang in there. That makes it, I guess you could call that the skeuomorphism, because really we're trying to make it sound more human-like and be more comfortable to interact with. Because like I said, we learn to talk by talking to humans. Now you talk to a machine, unless you want it to sound like kind of a, 60s sci-fi movie robot, you probably want it to have a little bit of a personality and not sound so bland and dry. Let me put it that way.
Absolutely. As you have worked with many different developers and helping them setting up conversational AI project, can you maybe mention one of the latest AI project you have been working on?
Yeah, well, it's I work on a ton, right? Because I help developers build all these. So I'm going to draw some broad brushstrokes instead of that narrow brushstroke. Okay. But one of the things we've really been working on is, because Bixby is inherently multimodal, because there's a screen on the phone, there's a screen on the TV, there's a screen on a watch. Okay. So how do you mix voice and screen together in a multimodal way? And I think it's a really interesting challenge, because you want you to be able to operate it with voice. And in some sense, you want the screen to be kind of an adjunct or kind of support what's happening. On the other hand, if I'm looking at a screen and can see something, and some voice, is droning on and on about the options, that's not optimal. So there's really kind of a design perspective kind of thinking around, hey, is the user viewing the screen? Are they not viewing the screen? How do I design my voice application, my multimodal application with voice and UI differently? What can I do from an AI perspective to understand, is the way the user responding, are they able to see the screen or not? Quite frankly, that's pretty crude right now. It's kind of, did they use a button to start it? Or did they use Hi Bixby to invoke it? If they used Hi Bixby, I don't know if they can see it. If they used a button, I'm assuming they can watch the screen. But I think there's some pretty interesting AI things of, can I see the screen or not? If I can see the screen, maybe the screen is more of a interface that allows me to do things. If I can't see the screen, then I need it to be all voice driven. So it's really a great challenge to think about these two modalities. How do you mix them together in the best possible way when the user may be using one or the other modality or both modalities? So I painted some broad strokes there, because we've been doing a lot of thinking around that. Not only in the technology side, but also on the design side, to kind of optimize the experience.
Can you maybe mention a concrete example of where you combine like the voice and an interface together? When would you do that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we built internally for Bixby is the Yelp capsule. And so you think about Yelp on your phone, right? You go Yelp, right? Search for food and restaurants primarily, although many other things. So you go in and you use Yelp on your phone. So it's really good for output, but it's kind of crappy for input, right? So if I wanted to find a vegetarian restaurant that was open at 10 p.m. next Saturday, I would have to do a lot of typing and swiping. But then I could see the results would be work really well. So then if you add a voice interface to that, then you start thinking about, hey, voice is really good at input, right? Find me a vegetarian restaurant that's open at 10 p.m. in San Francisco next Saturday. I can say that in one sentence. That's much faster than anything I could type or swipe or tap. On the other hand, the output, right, is naturally kind of scrolling list of restaurants, and I choose them. So one of the things we do with that capsule is, you can all control it by a voice, but you can also view the results and kind of click in and see restaurant details via touch. So it's an interesting combination of using voice, what it's really good at the input modality, and then using the UI at what it's really good at, the output modality, and kind of slicing and combining those together.
Maybe one next question I have is like, we talked before, like many people are affected by the COVID-19 situation. And how do you see the virus affecting the conversational AI as an industry overall?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've noticed in the conversational AI and voice is that actually voice application usage has gone way up during COVID-19. I think there's an obvious explanation. People are at home more, they got their voice assistant, they're like, what can I do with this beyond asking for the weather or play my favorite music, right? So that they're just using and experimenting more. But I also have a theory, and it goes back to that, hey, voice is inherently a human thing. Ergo, voice is kind of the most social way of interacting with our technology.
All right.
And I think as us all being socially isolated, right, we're looking for social outlets. Now, I don't pretend to think that your voice assistant is your friend. I'm not going that far.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually using it, but a couple of things, one, actually using it via voice, simple and quick and fast. The other thing that's really interesting is that if I go and I talk to, let's just use a smart speaker for an example. I talk to a smart speaker and ask it something.
Yeah.
Anyone who's around me can hear that interaction. Matter of fact, they could jump in and ask it something too. So it's inherently a social medium. Now compare that and contrast that to if I use my phone, it's kind of one-on-one. I'm just using the phone, one-on-one me and the phone. Even on my laptop right now, it's inherently one-on-one.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to voice about being a social medium that many people can get involved with, which is attractive and maybe leading to some of that kind of increased usage. So this is a golden time in some ways. If it's, you know, I hate to say golden about anything about these times around conversational AI, just because we've seen such a great increase in usage. And I think there'll be a lot of lessons learned from that.
Yeah, question here is, can you share a contrarian opinion you have about the future of conversational AI? And maybe let me point a little bit about the contrarian part, because I think a lot of people might agree on the general trend, maybe like AI becoming smarter in the future. But I'm mostly interested in those that not a lot of people would agree on, but you personally think that would become true in the future.
Sure. Yeah, I might talk about conversational AI or AI in general. So I will say that, you know, from an AI perspective, long-term, I'm bullish. I think AI is amazing. I think it's going to unlock amazing capabilities and going to help humanity. Okay. But I will say in the short term, I could be a little bearish about some of the things going on. I really think the hype has kind of outlived the reality. You know, one of the things I look at is AI. For those of us in the field, we know, and I like to say that AI isn't very smart. I don't mean to insult anyone that way, but really it's just grabbing swaths and swaths of data and looking for patterns. A lot of what's AI is really machine learning, right behind the scenes there. So it's really good at pattern recognition and understanding what's happening in the past, and then saying, okay, that's what will happen in the future. But sometimes what happened in the past isn't necessarily what we want to happen in the future. Sometimes it's called, you know, it might be like an anti-pattern. And I think humans, we have an amazing ability to kind of synthesize kind of our past experience with the present and go and say, yeah, that's applicable here because X, Y, and Z, or no, things have changed. So even though that's the way it happened in the past, it's not going to happen now. The machine, on the other hand, the AI or the ML particularly, is going to be like, okay, 99% of the time it happened this way in the past, ergo, it's a good way to proceed with the future. That's not necessarily true. There's this contextual, where we are in a modern way, what we've learned, there's past errors and things to be done differently. So I think when I hear about AI and, you know, being this like amazing tool that's going to revolutionize things, absolutely. But I think in the short term, we got to be pretty careful about what we've done now. We've seen some examples, right, with kind of like biased training sets, or the kind of the example that you get in the media a lot. So I think from an AI perspective, I'm bearish on the hype and bullish on the technology, if that makes some sense.
Maybe touching a little bit on the point where you mentioned that like AI is good for analyzing the past, right? I'm not sure if you have watched the new season of Westworld. where they basically is like describing a future where AI kind of dominating the world. And every human is being analyzed and predetermined their like future by the AI because they were analyzing the past behavior, right? So I'm afraid kind of this would happen in our case as well, you know? So do you think there's any way for us to kind of break this pattern and make AI also adopt capabilities to see the unexpected?
Interesting. Either we, evolve AI so we can understand the unexpected and kind of take that into algorithms, or we treat AI and output is one tool in our tool chest, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's incredibly valuable. It gives you incredible useful data, but it can't be deterministic. The output of the AI. Use that as input, but also use other tools or just human cognition, I think is an incredibly powerful tool to analyze and use that data. Because I would hate, you talk about, predetermination, right? That's such a dangerous thing, because one of the beauties of our society is that, we allow you can kind of go in a rut and you can reinvent yourself and come out of it and do amazing things. And if you look out through history, many of the kind of greatest leaders in history had some pretty dark times before they achieved fame and fortune, so to speak. And would they have been able to have done that if some kind of sentient kind of AI thing was like, nope, you're relegated to, minute, kind of not important thing in the world, when they ended up being incredibly important to the world. So I think that's something to watch. I'd hate to see that happen. I think, I tend to think of AI right now, it's a tool in the tool chest. There are other things we can do. We absolutely can improve AI and get it where it has maybe some kind of more idea of randomness in there, or kind of serendipity in that. I think that's a ways off. I think, like I said, to my mind, AI at this point, incredible future, but pretty crude in what it actually does in many cases.
I absolutely love this, like when you say AI is just a tool and we should combine it with other things, right? I think yesterday somebody told me about the concept of AI as in like augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence, right? Which is kind of using AI just to helping people making certain decisions, but not replacing people to take these decisions.
Pleasure being on. Thank you so much, and good luck with this. I think it's a brand new podcast. So sounds like I definitely am going to be a listener, and thanks for having me on as a guest.